There we go. We should be live. Hello, everybody out there in live viewers land. I hope everybody's having a fantastic Sunday. And if it's Sunday, well, if it's the first Sunday of the month, then that means, when it's 3:30 p.m. Central Time, then that usually means hanging out with Best Under Five. Welcome to Best Under Five. I am Jarrod Chris, the yard sale artist. I am joined by my cohort. It is Black Belt Chris. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you, Jarrod. I survived the purge from last month with Shark Exorcist, so I'm happy.
I don't know that you have yet. All of my revenges have not been taken. But we'll get to that. All right. Well, looks like we already have some folks in the chat. I want to say hi to stalwart friend and fan Matt Passo. He just got done reading comics, and stalwart friend and fan AU Kathy in the chat. So welcome everybody. On this episode, we're going to be taking a look at 1990s loose cannons. This film stars Gene Hackman, Dan Aykroyd, Dom DeLuise, Ronnie Cox, Nancy Travis, and it is a good time. Hello to Heinz Cook, by the way, who also joins us in the chat. So yes, today's topic is loose cannons. I've just pulled it up on IMDB to make sure it didn't have a last minute change. Hopefully it didn't, because nope, it didn't, because it's 4.9. 4.9 out of 5 on IMDB. Loose cannons, Gene Hackman, Dan Aykroyd comedy. And we'll start, I suppose, with Chris. Chris, how did you find this movie? Did you watch it back in the days? Is it a recent view? How did you come across Loose Cannons?
This is a recent view. After last month and when Gene Hackman passed away, I was just kind of perusing. Okay, I know I've got this, and this in my DVD collection. Things like The Unforgiven, Crimson Tide, et cetera, et cetera. It's Quick and Dead, all the good ones.
The A-list Gene Hackman.
What's streaming? What's out there that I haven't seen? And this one popped up on my radar, and I'm like, what? Gene Hackman, Dan Aykroyd, late night, like 1990. What the heck is this? So I looked at it, read the synopsis, and thought, okay, this might be interesting. So I dove in.
There you go. I actually discovered this one back in 90. I didn't see it in the theater, but I did catch it because it was an early release. I want to say I looked it up and it came out in like January or February of 90. I caught it on VHS later in the year at a friend of mine's house, and we enjoyed it. We were, at the time I was about 12 years old and 12 or 13. And when you're of that age, this kind of really wild antics of Dan Aykroyd is a very appealing comedy factor to it. So that's I'm familiar with it from way back then, and then sort of refreshed on it. And then of course you and I started doing Best Under 5, and I think I want to say maybe you had talked about you were watching it, or one of us had brought it up. I might have been rewatching it on social media. And so what has happened since we started the show is every time we're sort of talking about things, I kind of tend to look them up to see what their score is on IMDb. It's under 5, and I add it to the list.
I do it too. My son and I were watching a couple of sword and sorcery flicks last night, because that's one of those genres that we haven't really delved into in terms of the B grade stuff. And like, holy cow, there's a ton of stuff here, Jarrod, and I could do.
I like your attitude. So I actually keep a list of movies that when they spark my interest, I put on my phone. And that's kind of how we ended up on Loose Cannons at the end of last episode. After we clicked goodbye everybody on our live stream, we sat and chatted for a minute about, I looked at what was on my list, and I mentioned Loose Cannons, and you said, hey, with the recent passing of Gene Hackman, let's talk about it. Let's give it a look. So that's how it ended up on today's show. We've got some folks, some chatter in the chat that I saw. I know that Kathy said that this was a well-casted duo, which is definitely something you and I can talk about. And Matt Passo, slightly more cynical. What did Gene Hackman do for a paycheck only? Got it? And
I'm
Matt
somewhere in
also
between the
suggested
two.
Eliminators 4.9. Oh, hang on.
Yes.
I gotta say,
Yes.
Eliminators 4.9, which we did, you and I did talk about on social media the other day. And don't think I didn't write it down in my list of things, Matt. Anyway, let's get back to loose
I think
cannons. And
as
you had
soon as
started
you
on the
mentioned the
topic there,
Eliminators,
Chris. So
I
go
looked
ahead
it
and run
up.
with it.
What was that? I missed that.
Oh, I
So,
said,
yeah.
go ahead and
Yeah.
start your thoughts on loose cannons. You kind of were rolling in that direction.
No, I have mixed feelings about this. I'm thinking, okay, Gene Hackman, Dan Aykroyd, this is going to be good. I mean, it's automatically getting a bump in the score because it's got Gene Hackman in it. I mean, I've never seen a Gene Hackman movie that I
Yeah,
didn't
absolutely.
like. I mean, some more than others, and this is one of those that it's kind of towards the bottom of the list. There were things about it I liked, and there were things about it that I was just like, this is kind of getting on my nerves. But it wasn't coming from Gene Hackman, though. It was coming from Dan Aykroyd.
I will agree with you 100%.
I did like it. I did like the movie. I like the concept. It's your standard buddy cop, film with a slight twist to it. But there are some things that I think they could have done better that would have really elevated this or made it better because in the trivia section I found this holds the distinction of having a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes out of 19 reviews. I thought, wow,
Oh,
that's kind of
wow.
harsh. However, the audience score I think was a B minus. B minus. So, okay, yeah, I'd buy that. I'd buy that.
Yeah, that seems fair. That does seem fair. So, if those of you who are listening maybe haven't seen or even heard of Loose Cannons, first of all, if you're probably picking up some maybe fairly overall positive vibes from me and Chris, and I think that's accurate. I think we both kind of like this movie, but it's not a top tier. But if you want a fun 80s movie, then and I say an 80s movie, it came out in 90, but I think I read somewhere where they filmed it in like 88 and it didn't get released, or 89 and it didn't get
feel
released.
To it. It
100%,
definitely has an
100%
80s feel to it. Yes.
Yeah. So, short version for those of you who might just need a quick plot summary. Loose Cannons is really just sort of a like Chris said, a buddy cop movie where they're trying to solve a mystery around what starts off as a porno flick, actually. Although I will, if you're a parent and you're listening, there's no explicit stuff around that. It's just that people have found like this quote unquote World War II era porn flick that features Hitler, right? So that's why this sort of Dom DeLuise plays sort of like this porn magnate guy, and he wants to film. But there's a lot more information on the film that could sort of bring down some modern day, Nazis that have hidden away, and it's much more about that. Like I have to mention the porn film, and because that's the thing everyone's after. But again, if you're listening to this and you're worried about the content, that there's almost none of that at all. Really, other than the concept of it.
And then what's funny,
don't get too scared about that.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is at the end of the movie, they keep talking this up that it's a porn film that Hitler was in, yada yada yada. But yet at the end, when they have the gotcha moment and they start airing the film, it's like the directors and the producers just say, wait, we can't have this showing in the background of the big gotcha moment of the film. It's literally I think it was the point where they were trying to kill Hitler. They were supposedly trying to look like they were shooting somebody on film. It totally switched gears as to what the film was, which I think was kind of a smart thing for them to do.
Yeah.
Are we really going to see this? I'm like, I can't imagine them going this direction at the end, considering what they're going to do to discredit what was it? He was running for Chancellor of Germany.
Yeah. Von Metz, I think his name was, or something. It was close to that. It was close. And he's by great character actor Robert Prosky, who's you've seen him in a million things, and he's great.
I had to look him up. I'm thinking, I know that name. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
He's in everything, right?
Yes.
So the crux of the comedy of this movie comes from Gene Hackman and Dan Aykroyd's sort of mismatched buddy cop thing, because Gene Hackman plays a character called Mac, who's very sort of hard nosed. You kind of immediately like him, even though he kind of is rough around the edges kind of cop. And then Dan Aykroyd is suffering from multiple personality disorder due to trauma that he had in his past as being an undercover cop. So whenever especially hyper violence or hyper exciting things happen, there's all these alternate personalities come out, which allows Dan Aykroyd to do a lot of, you know, silly voices and just be wonky and wacky. And I read a little behind the scenes on this as well. And Dan Aykroyd fully realized this, that I'm going to misquote him, but essentially what he said was, I'm sort of the fuel for the comedy, but I'm not the focus of it. He says the real comedy is how Gene reacts to my wonkiness, which I absolutely agree with. Like Gene Hackman, like watching this when I was 12 or 13, I was all about the Aykroyd antics, but now as an adult, it's all about how Hackman reacts.
And part of me wonders how much of that was ad-libbed, how much Aykroyd just kind of went with and did whatever he wanted. Because some of those reactions from Gene Hackman, he's got this look on his face like, what in the hell is he doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
He's just like totally shocked. He's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. And as per usual, later on in the show, I'll put up some reviews, but a lot of the common threads in the reviews is like, this movie's not funny. And I call BS on that. I think Gene Hackman has a good amount of funny moments. I mean, you can really enjoy the Aykroyd wackiness. Does it grate on you after a while? For me, yeah, it does. Yes. It's a little too much. But again, when I was 12 or 13, it was great. You know, it's
right.
It's, you know, we have a friend online who enjoys similar movies, and he goes by Def Dave online. And I've met him in real life, I think once. And he said something brilliant in our chat about this before we started recording. He said, if you sort of imagine this as a later 90s film, recast it, put Jim Carrey in that role of Dan Aykroyd. And I'm thinking, absolutely, yes. 100% yes. Like put Jim Carrey in it with like, heck, Gene Hackman could have still done it then. But if I had to bring someone else in, someone who's comedic, but with a stone face, Tommy Lee Jones does that well. Liam Neeson does that well.
Liam Neeson, yes. Liam Neeson, for sure.
That would be the modern equivalent of it. So the biggest complaint I think it sounds like we both have is just a little. It's like Dan Aykroyd to an 11, and we probably could have used him at about an 8.
yeah. There were parts where it was just way over the top, and I'm thinking, holy cow, man, okay, this is getting tired. And actually that was I think it was, I can't remember if it was Siskel or Ebert, because when I was doing some looking around for, you know, some of the reviews and, you know, some other trivia and stuff, Siskel and Ebert both hated this. I mean, shocker, right? But they both said the same kind of thing we're doing, that Aykroyd was the one that really grated on them, you know, and like Kathy's saying here, 2 to 3 minute clips, it's hilarious, but 2-hour movie, not so much. And she's not wrong. You know, I think if he had dialed it down a little bit, and maybe this is my complaint. I think if the multiple personalities that came out of him, if they had stuck to a specific, say, genre, if you will. So let's just go with historical figures. Then I think it would have turned out better. But he was just all over the map, which is I think part of what grates on me.
Yeah, he's very he's very Jim Carrey before Jim Carrey zaniness was a thing. And it's almost too much. Like, listen closely, audience. When I say, imagine Jim Carrey going, this might be a little too much. Like that. I know that's hard to believe. But on the flip side of that, I do want to bring out something I think is really important too. There's some moments, because Aykroyd's character, when he's not under pressure or around violence, when he's his regular self, is exceptionally smart, like Sherlock Holmesian smart. And those scenes, watching him, like especially his big first time he meets Mac, he's doing a crime scene, and it is super impressive. Like, I feel like they should have done more of that, although they did use it to very good comedic effect later.
They did, and you're right. I wish they had done more of that, because that stuff from Aykroyd, when he was not doing the crazy voices, was what had me laughing. Yes. You know, I was laughing at Aykroyd when he was being his normal self. He was actually almost channeling his character from Ghostbusters, you know, with how geeky and analytical.
Very intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was laughing at some of the things he was saying in the interactions with Gene Hackman when he was going, when he'd have his break and he would start channeling his multiple personalities. I was laughing at Hackman, or I was chuckling about what Hackman was doing, not what Aykroyd was doing. And you're right, that opening sequence where Aykroyd analyzes the murder scene to a T. I was laughing pretty hard at that because he lays it all out, and Hackman's like, "How do you know all this?" And he asks him the 4 questions, and then Aykroyd lays it all out.
Yes,
I was laughing pretty hard at that.
Yeah, and it's great because, again, all the comedy's sort of around, especially when you're an adult, around Hackman's reactions. So you're right, even his reactions to these amazing deductions, he's still kind of smart as like, any other questions? He's, Aykroyd's like, what do you see? It's a crotch, and I don't much like it. Very funny lines. Just really come through. So yeah, this is one, and of course we'll get to scoring it later, but if listeners and viewers who are watching the live stream, thanks for being here, by the way. If you're picking up a vibe that I think both Chris and I are telling you to defy the critics on this one, I think it's correct. Like, I think if you go in with the mental preparation that Aykroyd is going to dial it up to 11, and if you know that and just go, okay, I get it, and focus more on what Gene Hackman's doing in those moments, I think you're gonna actually like this movie.
Yes, yeah. You want to focus on Hackman when Aykroyd, kind of flips.
So, aside from all the comedic duo part, the story of the film that they're trying to get, which again they talk about it as a skin film, but then they talk later on, they kind of cover their butts, no pun intended. By saying there's more on the reel, and the stuff the more that's on the reel is what's really important.
Yes.
So what's interesting is, outside the comedic thing, it definitely has that 80s plot line, international intrigue. You've seen a lot of movies like this in the 80s that sort of have that intrigue where these people are trying to get it and those people are trying to get it, and the FBI is trying to get it. Ronnie Cox plays Agent Smiley in this.
Agent, yes.
And he's good. And I have to point this out, Chris, because I don't know that I saw this anywhere online, but I just noticed it myself, and maybe you did too. The scene where they first meet and Ronnie Cox is kind of being that slimy FBI agent that's trying to get Mac to do what he wants him to do. He kind of
the consulate,
at the consulate. They literally they go up the stairs, do one lap around, back down the stairs to exactly where they started again in that scene. It's a walk around scene, but they literally walk one circuit around the building, go right back to where they started, which I thought was just kind of funny. But then I was like, my deep cinematic brain was like, is that a subtle thing by the director saying they are literally right back where they started? Like, no progress has been made. I thought that was pretty good.
I don't know. I don't think Bob Clark gets that deep into it.
I doubt it.
Thought process with the movies, And if you recognize that name, Bob Clark, I mean, this is the same guy that gave us what was it? Black Christmas and A Christmas Story.
The two greatest Christmas movies. They make the best double feature, really.
Let's see what. Oh, and he also gave us Porky's too. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I totally forgot he did Porky's. But when this opened at the box office, it ended up in the top 5 opening weekend. So, that's pretty impressive. I can
see that because these actors are both very hot in 1990.
Yeah. Well, here's the 4 that beat it out. And 3 of these I recognize. 1 of them I don't. Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal. It was opening weekend for that, so shocker, that's number 1.
Okay.
Then Driving Miss Daisy, Stella, that one's not ringing a bell, and then Born on the 4th of July.
Oh man, that is fairly stiff competition for a lot of theater, and this may be more of a recent years, but a lot of movie studios will kind of quote unquote drop their crap in February. Like they don't put the A-list stuff in February. Like they save that for the summer blockbuster or the Christmas season. And that is an awful lot, a lot of good films to be dropping in February. To be honest with you,
well,
I kind of get Hard to Kill because I mean, at that point, Seagal, his bubble was about to expand. Like that was kind of his big.
That was the film that really put him in the spotlight. I think Driving Miss Daisy, Born on the 4th were maybe not necessarily on their way out, but had been out for a few weeks at that point. Because I find it hard to believe that Born on the 4th is sitting at 4th,
right?
Versus Hard to Kill.
It would make sense that they maybe got released right around Christmas, and they're just sort of tail ending. That would make sense. Yeah, sure. Because
I didn't look when the other ones were released. I just know the site I use it pegged Hard to Kill opening weekend is what it said.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
it only stayed in the theaters for 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm thinking, well, I kind of see why, but
yeah, it's an oddball, but a fun oddball. The only additional trivia fact that I'll bring, and then I'll see if you have any more, is it was fun in the very opening scene at the beginning. A little early David Alan Grier. I was like, hey, it's
yes, David Alan Grier. Yeah. I had him down on my on the cast list. I'm like, okay, we got all the big ones. It's like, who else is in this? I'm like, oh, hey, Ronnie Cox. Oh, David Alan Grier. What was the other one? Pathia Murkison, she was one that I recognized. She's she was the lady, I think the desk sergeant at the at the precinct. I'm like, is that who I think it is? And I looked, I'm like, yep, it is. From Law and Order fame. And Tobin Bell.
Oh yeah,
Tobin Bell is in this.
He wants to play a game.
Well, he was playing one of the bad guys. He was siding with the Germans on this. So, what was another one? We talked Dom DeLuise. I like Dom DeLuise in this. I thought he was pretty good in this.
He was like, he's one of those actors that when he pops up in movies, you're either like, oh, here we go, or you're like, I did think he had some added value to this. He had some very funny lines. You mentioned Miss Murkison, who played Rachel. I thought her chemistry with Gene Hackman was great. Like the they definitely did good. Like, we've been cop friends for a long time banter.
Yes, their banter at the beginning when he brings in his cat.
Yes, I love the fact that he's been kicked out of his apartment and literally everything he owns is in his car.
Well, didn't he say it was a fire? I'm thinking he had a fire in the morning, in his apartment, and I'm thinking, man, he got everything out of there awfully fast.
Yeah, I think he was lying. I think he got kicked out of his apartment.
I'm thinking, no, I think he got kicked out, dude.
Oh yeah, that was not a bad scene either. Again, like you said, when Aykroyd is not being super zany, when he's sort of being himself, when he's sort of like subtly complaining about how he drives and subtly, can you cover the cat, like all that?
Can you cover the cat? Yeah,
full brakes, kitty litter goes everywhere. That was pretty funny. Any other things about me that I don't like?
Yeah. Well, when this film when it first started, I'm thinking, what in the heck is going on here? Because they're all traveling, by boat, through this harbor, this bay, trying to get away from the bad guys. And when the one German, when he started talking, I thought, is Jürgen Prochnow in this? Because it sure sounded like. And then at first I thought it was him. When when they finally did the shot of him, the dude on the bow of the boat, calling out to Dom DeLuise and the rest of them. And I'm like, is that? And I looked it up, like, oh no, it's not. Just sounds a whole lot like him. That being said, I think if they had put him in this, that would have been fantastic. Yeah,
he certainly would have belonged.
I think if you took the comedic element out of this and made it tweaked it a little bit and made it a straight thriller, it would make a fantastic,
it
straight
works.
up thriller.
Yes,
it works. It works.
Yeah, it works as a thriller.
As it is, you've got it struck me as a little bit of, I don't know if it'd be Running Scared or Midnight, a bit more Running Scared than Midnight Run, and Odd Couple, and the Odd Couple kind of put together.
It's a very good way to put it. That is a very good way to put it. All right. You know what? I think now is as good a time as any to bring up I took a couple of screenshots from my Plex, a multitude of Rotten Tomatoes reviews that were rotten. I only picked two. There was no positive one to pick from, which I, again, think is odd. Like, if you listen to me and Chris, we're telling you, if you've got a rainy Sunday afternoon and you're just like, maybe loose cannon, yeah, do it. I don't think he'll be mad about it. I think he'll, especially if you like little lady silliness. But let me pull up my first review. It is, there we go. It's from, it's a New York Times review by Vincent Canby, who said, Mr. Hackman and Mr. Aykroyd deserve much better. They really do. Each gives a thoroughly professional performance that is consistently undercut by the direction of Mr. Clark. And how do you feel about that? I'll let you talk on that.
I think they definitely do. They're dealing with what they've been dealt, and they do a good job at it. They deliver. Now, granted, sometimes Aykroyd's a little over the top. I can't really speak to the direction of Bob Clark. It's like, okay, how much of a hand did he have in, everything that transpired on screen? I think there were some things that maybe Clark could have changed, in the directing of it. But I just think it suffers mostly from Aykroyd's over the top wackiness. Not so much the direction of Bob Clark. It's Aykroyd, taking it to almost past Jim Carrey levels of wackiness at points.
Just sort of spouting any catchphrase he's ever seen on television, type of a deal. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'll pull up my second review, and I wholeheartedly agree with your thoughts on the first one. This is from the Apollo Guide to Ryan Cracknell, who says, quite embarrassing, really, especially with the overacting of Dan Aykroyd. And I think we've thoroughly agreed with that. Although I want to make it clear, like, I don't come away from this movie thinking, Dan Aykroyd, you ruined Loose Cannons. I don't have that feeling.
No.
I just go, Dan Aykroyd, it was a little much. That's how I feel.
Yeah. It was a little much. He didn't ruin it, but it was a little much. Yeah. And it actually, I thought it kind of got worse as the movie went on. At first it was okay, there's a couple little things here and there, but then he started to dial it up as the movie went.
Yeah.
Like the first breakdown he has in the bar, and he starts channeling some British soldier, guy, which was then when I thought, like, okay, he's going to start channeling his alternate personalities are historical figures. But and that's where I thought it was going to head, but it didn't, because I thought him breaking down into that, doing that British accent and just totally throwing everybody for a loop at the bar, it was funny.
Yeah, it was. It was. And like you said, then it just kind of keeps going. Although I will say his various impressions of Star Trek characters are good. There was a couple of those lines that made me laugh. But like, it just kind of keeps on. I mean, I do like the fact that sort of he classic buddy odd couple comedy, they clash, but then they find a mutual respect and they end up liking each other. And Hackman even kind of helps Aykroyd sort of defeat some of his demons, and so it had a little bit of heart to it, which was not too shabby, but yeah.
We got to give a shout out. We had was it Bill Fagerbank from we had Patrick Starfish in this movie. he was the what was he? I guess he would have been the bouncer at the S&M club. So that one threw me. I'm like, wait, is that who I think it is? But I looked it up.
I think our friend Def Dave brought him up as well.
But yeah. Oh, and I don't know if you noticed it, Jarrod, but as in the scene where they're at the bathhouse, when the Germans come running in and start shooting up the place, the redhead henchman, did you recognize him? Or did you catch his glimpse of him? He shows up twice. It's Judo Gene LaBelle.
Judo Gene.
I was looking, I'm like, is that who I think it is? And I looked up, like, it is. It's Gene LaBelle. Steven Seagal's favorite guy.
Hey, they were all just laying around different movies in the 80s. All right, I am going to drop my favorite bit of trivia about this movie, and then we can take a look at Jarrod's rankings and talk about how that it goes in just a minute. And of course, we'll definitely see it. Make sure Chris gets anything off of his list that he needs to. But I'm going to drop this trivia. We'll go to Chris, and then we'll do Jarrod's rankings, and we'll start the wrap up. But check out this trivia fact. You may have read up on this already, Chris. But listen,
I want to see if you got the same one.
Back in May of 2013. Yeah, he's nodding. All right.
Mm-hmm.
An employee at a Calgary, Alberta landfill discovered some film negative in the mounds of trash. He looked closer and found the image of a man kneeling over a gruesome murder victim. Thinking this could be evidence of a crime, he submitted the negatives to the Calgary Police Services. After a short investigation, they recognized Dan Aykroyd in the film, contacted his agent for information, finally concluding it was simply discarded negative film of loose cannons. The investigation was immediately closed. Everyone had a good laugh, and Aykroyd jokingly told TMZ the movie should have been left in the landfill where it belongs. So Aykroyd has a sense of humor around loose cannons. But
that's the same piece of trivia I found. that one had me laughing.
I was like, we got to share this with the listeners for sure. All right, before we go to Jarrod's taking a look at his list of movies we watched so far and where this one's going to land. Chris, did you have any extra trivia or anything else you need to get off your chest?
I don't have any extra trivia. I think we hit it all. There wasn't a whole lot out there about this, but the stuff we did find, you and I found some of the same stuff. It was pretty good. And that landfill, finding a murder, film of a murder. I thought that was pretty good. And then Dan Aykroyd's response to it, like, "Oh, that's kind of harsh, man."
And in our chat, Matt, dang it, the chat just jumped. Hang on. Our chat, Matt Postle said, or was it a perfect crime that Dan got away with? So, yeah. So we got a couple things left to do. We need to, we'll take a look at my list. And of course, we have to say, what would we score it? In fact, let's get those scores done, and then we'll look at the list and we'll wrap it up. It's at a 4.9 out of 10 on IMDb right now. Chris, how would you adjust it?
Well, it's getting a full 1 point bump, at least a 1 point bump for me, because it's got Gene Hackman in it, and I would almost put this I'd put this at a 6.5. I'm like 6.5, 7. But if it wasn't for Aykroyd's over the top, antics, I would give it a solid 7. But I'm thinking, 6.5. 6.5.
I don't know if this is a first in Best Under 5 history, but I 100% agree. I'm at a 6.5. I don't know if we've ever scored them the same.
We have not.
Anybody, by the way, in the chat, if you have seen this movie and you want to score it on a 1 to 10, we'd love to report your scores as well. I agree with you for all the same reasons. In fact, I did a rewatch of this, just a week or two ago to prepare for the show. And I put it up and I put the movie on, and my wife was like, she was kind of enjoying it as we watched it. And she asked me something that had led me to tell her, "Oh, I've seen this before. This is for Best Under 5." And her reaction was like, "This is under 5?" And I was like, "Yeah, right. It's
like just barely."
She's like, "It seems like it'd be better than a 5, but so I think a lot of folks agree on that." All right. Let's go ahead and I will pull up last week's list as of episode 7. This is what Jarrod's rankings list looked like last week. Firmly in 7th and last place for now until the end of time, perhaps.
Yes.
Shark Exorcist. In my 6th place spot would be the time we talked about Grease 2. 5th place was The Fear. 4th place is Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. 3rd place is Fangs. 2nd place is The Base with Mark Dacascos. And still sitting in my number 1 slot is Jaws 3. It's
going to take a lot to unseat Jaws 3 because it's at the top of my list too.
It is. And I also have to consider just like at what point do I want to scrap this and start a new list? Because like once we get to episode 75, it's going to be really hard to keep up with it.
No, yeah.
I'm thinking maybe like every 10 episodes we call it a season. Like this will be our season 1 list, and then once we hit
season
10 episodes,
there we go. Yeah, season 1 list, season 2 list. Yeah, because mine's similar. I got Jaws 3, Fangs, The Raid, and Loose Cannons is coming in at 4.
Oh, you got it 4?
4 on my list. And then
you
Blair
ready to
Witch,
see?
The Fear, Grease 2, and Shark Exorcist.
Okay, so you have a dead center, but pretty much in our 8. I am now going to reveal Jarrod's rankings, and prepare yourself. Because Jarrod is quite fond of this. I considered it was good enough for me to consider it dethroning Jaws 3, but it ultimately did not. I have it in second place. I have it. I have Jaws 3 at number 1 and Loose Cannons at number 2. Followed closely by The Base and Fangs, and then we have Blair Witch 2 with The Fear, Grease 2, and of course Shark Exorcist at the bottom. You know, the more I think about this, I like the idea of sort of starting a new season every 10 episodes. But here's my caveat. I think I might carry over whatever. Like if Jaws 3 is still the reigning champ, it might carry over just to see if anyone can ever unseat it. Like whatever the reigning champ is gets
Jaws
carried over.
3. We're gonna have a hard time unseating Jaws 3.
Yeah, we are. It still befuddles me that it's under 5.
Wait, actually, I take that back. I can think of one that might unseat it. I'll tell you after we're done.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to potentially spill the beans.
Behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
So right now, Loose Cannons is sitting in second place. Now, I'll admit, especially on our top 4 of 8, we've done 8 so far. My top 4 of Jaws 3, Loose Cannons, The Base, and Fangs. That's a tight bunch. Like, there's not a ton of distance. Like, I legitimately like all those movies, and would pop them in for a rewatch any given moment. Like, if I went over to Black Belt Chris's house one afternoon, he's like, "Oh man, I gotta watch The Base again. You cool?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll watch The Base."
It's funny. You and I both have the same top 4. They're just in slightly different order.
There you go. And I don't hate on the Blair Witch 2. That one's okay, and The Fear was okay, and Grease 2 is it's better than Shark Exorcist. I
don't know. We're gonna have a hard time finding something that's worse than Shark Exorcist, and I'm not sure I want to go there.
Well, I tell you what, I did want to bring it back to Loose Cannons just real quick before we leave, because one thing that I remember that I wanted to just kind of touch on. I thought this was weird. And we don't do a lot of controversial content or anything on this, but one of the reviews that I saw that I didn't bring it in for the Rotten Tomatoes reviewers, like it was a very angry review about Loose Cannons, and it said,
really?
Yeah, it said that like its whole premise was that it was a very homophobic movie. And I got to tell you guys, the only reason I bring it, we don't do a lot of controversy here. I wanted to bounce that off of you, Chris. Like, did I miss something? Like, I'm not of that community, so I can't say that for sure, but just, looking at it through the lens, I'm just like, what?
I'm scratching my head on that one.
Okay. So it's not just me. I don't know.
I'm really scratching my head on that one. Like,
okay.
Where that like just came out of left field. I'm like, what? No.
I mean, it's kind of mentioned that the movie that Hitler was in might have been all guys, And
I guess that might be where he's coming from for that.
Maybe?
With that,
but again, they didn't really harp on that.
No, they didn't harp on it. It was just thrown out there as that's what it might be, and it's just boom, that's it. Okay. Nothing else.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't like miss something or miss some lines but I never felt like this movie was mean-spirited at all. So I just want to toss that out there just in case our listeners go out and they're sort of looking at reviews and they see this one and go, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to watch that," because I would say I'd have to disagree with that. But I wanted to bounce it off of Chris, and it sounds like you're kind of with me on that.
Yeah, I disagree wholeheartedly. That's just he's pulling stuff out of thin air. He's finding something just to be angry about.
I felt that way too. I just want to make sure I hadn't missed anything or anything like that. So we don't do a ton of controversial content, and in fact I was like, I don't know if I'll bring this up. Then I thought, well, I kind of want to talk to Chris about it just in case I missed something that I thought, well, okay. No, I think at the end of the day, it might have been someone looking for something to be mad about. Again, everyone looks through life through their own lenses of experience and all that. So maybe if you watch it and catch something that maybe Chris and I didn't catch, that's just how it goes, I guess, sometimes. But I certainly didn't feel like it was mean-spirited in any way.
No.
Okay. So we are in agreement of that. In fact, I think we're also in agreement. Like we said, we both put this at a 6.5, and we both said, "Hey, don't listen to the critics. Go enjoy this one. You know, when you just need a little time waster. You know, maybe you're on a flight. You know, you just want to watch a little something on. I doubt it's going to be available from the airline because it's from 1990. But if you have,
I don't think this one rates high enough to make it on the airline's watch list on their whatever they use for streaming on their streaming server.
Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at the poster right now, and I'm noticing that it's rated R, and I'm thinking,
holy cow!
It must be language because there wasn't any nudity at all. The violence was average 80s violence, very average,
and it's also very PG-13 ish.
Yeah,
violence because you don't see anybody. They get shot, they just fall over. It's not they get shot. They got holes in the front and the back. A la RoboCop.
Yeah, it's got to be language.
Get hit, they're down.
It must have had more. You know what? I can click. I am on the page right now. I can.
IMDB's
parents guide.
Parents guide. Yes. So sometimes you read those parents guide, and it's pretty funny what they're cautioning about. It's like, really?
Yeah, sometimes it's fairly hilarious. Yes. Okay, so yes, the F word is used approximately 25 times. And I was wrong about nudity. I forgot about the time where they went to the S&M club, although it's not like on display. I think there's a topless woman in the background, maybe.
Yeah, that must have been in the background because I don't remember that.
Yeah, and again, you hear us use phrases like S&M club, and you go, "Oh my gosh, what kind of movie is?" It's very sort of in the background. It's not. It's much like the film we talked about, like this film everyone's after. Oh, it's a German porn film from the Nazis. That's as deep as it's ever going to go, as people mention.
Yeah, it's not over the top. When you walk in, you think you're going to be shocked. It's just it just looks like a bunch of people that are standing around. They really like leather.
Yeah.
That's about it.
So I'm guessing it says the F word's used about 25 times, which I'm certain Gene Hackman probably was 23 of the 25.
No, it's probably all 25.
It wouldn't surprise me one bit. All right. So that is pretty much done and dusted on Loose Cannons. Chris and I are both going to say, go ahead and watch it. If it's not going to blow you away. You're not going to be like, oh, this is a overlooked 80s gem. Might be too strong of a word, but like an 80s flick that is worth an afternoon, microwave popcorn and enjoy yourself. Yeah. That's what I say. All right. This, of course, this being Best Under 5 is, of course, a Longbox Crusade production, and we encourage you to check out Longbox Crusade wherever you may find us. X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube. It's all Longbox Crusade, and of course, we are mainly a podcast. So if you're a live viewer, thanks for stopping by. According to my count, we've had about 50 folks stop by today, and I really appreciate that. These do get condensed, edited, levelated, all that. The audio, basically the audio track of this live stream does get released as a podcast on Longbox Crusade podcast feed. So please do check those out. If you would like to leave a comment, you can do it again at Longbox Crusade X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can email contact@longboxcrusade.com. But the most fun way to do it is to pick up your phone and dial 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX. That is our voicemail line. Leave us a voicemail, and I can actually play it on the show, and Chris and I can talk about it. So if you want to weigh in with your thoughts on Loose Cannons, leave a voicemail and we'll play it on the next episode or an upcoming episode, and we'll talk about it. As long as it's, you just don't leave us a string of Gene Hackman-like obscenities. We'll be fine. All right. So that's the Longbox Crusade. Me personally, I am at Yard Sale Artist. That's X, Facebook, Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. If you'd like to chat with me or give me a follow, I'm pretty good at following back. So check me out. Chris, where can folks find you?
Well, they can find me on X at BlackBeltX21.
There you go. And if you like talking about B movies and finding movies you hadn't known existed, he's a good follow for that. Mm-hmm. He's always digging something up. Chips. What's that? And chips. Yeah. And like Dave said, we didn't talk about Airwolf and we didn't talk about chips. So, we're good. That's right. Well, we could.
We could.
I will talk about Arrow anyway. We won't do it. We won't do it. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Again, I'm Jarrod. This has been my buddy Chris, and we will hopefully, I don't see any problems. If they are, you can always check the LONGBOX CRUSADE social media. We'll let you know when we're going to be back, but we should be back on the first Sunday in May, unless that's Mother's Day. I didn't even think of that. I don't. Uh-oh.
No. Mother's Day isn't until 2 weeks later.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you're on top of things.
Yeah. The only reason I know that is because when we're trying to schedule a May camp out with my Boy Scout troop, where I was like, all right, where's Mother's Day? Because we don't want to pick that weekend.
Right.
We will have a lot of moms mad at us.
All right. So we should be back on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It should be
really?
when you catch Chris and I talking about what as soon as we click in stream, which I'm going to do in just a few seconds, he and I will pick the next movie, and it'll be a fun surprise for everybody. So until then, this has been Jarrod and Chris and Best Under 5, and this podcast has been rated B for bye.